Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to our community book club where we link up with our local authors to come out and share and do a book read, and we can be engaged. And it is so good to be back. I miss you guys. Yeah, y'all miss me? I know. Thank you. I miss y'all too. So it's great to be back here at Mo's. We want to thank Mo and Dee's for allowing us to host it here, and also shout out to our visionary Fonte Lyles for putting this together. So I will not be before you long. I am getting ready to introduce to you our author for tonight. So excited for him to come up here. He always have gems. So I got my gym bag ready so you could drop them in there. I don't know how full it's going to be before we leave tonight, but I'm sure it's going to be heavy. But his name is Leshaun Jenkins, and he is a graduate of I'm going to say it out, East Carolina University. He earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in history as well as a Bachelor Arts degree in political science. He completed his master's degree in School of Administration from NC State University. In 2020, he was selected in the Haiti Teacher Fellows Program at UNC Chapel Hill and Duke University. So y'all already know so far he's a smart guy, in which he completed in 2021. He also received a certification in global education from Harvard University in 2021 as well. He is currently in his 24th year in the educational field. He currently serves as a principal at Pitt County Early College High School. He is a former 4-time Teacher of the Year. They like him. Okay. 18-time Coach of the Year. That means he know what he doing. Okay. Including State and National Coach of the Year in 2024. Let's go. He is truly passionate about encouraging, inspiring, and building opportunities for current and future generations. So I want y'all to share this information. You are still welcome to come out here to Mo's and D's to, so we can have your presence here would be great. If not, just share the video as you're watching us live here at Mo's and D's as LaShawn comes forward to get started on his book. LaShawn, let's give him a clap, please.
Thank you. Do I sit here? Is this where I sit? Okay. Should I use this mic? Okay. All right. Here we go. All right, are we good? Can you hear me? Is that good? Okay. All right, everybody, y'all hear me back there? Okay, great, awesome. So, first of all, let me just say, express some gratitude. Really, really humble to kind of be up here, part of the book club. I have community book club read. I have participated, or I guess engaged. I've listened to other local authors presenting their books, and it's been really good. I've missed a couple episodes, but it's kind of surreal to be sitting here with my book in my hand because it finally, kind of came to fruition. But anyway, just really fortunate for just being invited to be here. So I really appreciate it. So I'm not sure of the formality that we go through with it, but my book is written a little bit differently. So I do want to just, first of all, talk about the framework of the book, how it came about, and then I want us to dive into the book. And so a lot of people, for those people who may be watching, who may be thinking that, it's a book about school or education, I'm not an educator, so it really won't be inspiring to me. It's written in a way that it will appeal to anybody that's ever been in a position of leadership. Again, really grateful to be here. So I wanted to kind of jump back in. And so the name of my book is Principles of a Principal. And so this book was birthed from a lot of different places. One, when I decided to take on the challenge of accepting the challenge of being a principal, something that I said that I would never, ever, ever do. And I'll be absolutely honest, it was never in my heart to be a principal until it came time for me to possibly take over a school. And so when I became a principal, to make a long story short, it was suggested that maybe I should keep like a principal's diary, just to kind of chronicle my first year as a principal. And at first I was just doing it just for personal growth, go back, see how I've grown. But then through a partnership with EdNC, they wanted to actually make it into a formidable journal where principals all over the state, all over the country could read it. And so that's what I did. And so over the course of a year, I wrote 118 entries, just about a lot of different things. And so when I finished the school year, I realized I had all these journals that I had written about different things. And so I put them in categories. And so this book is sorted through categories about personal and self-care, relationships, school culture and climate, student efficacy, and professional development. And so I decided that it might be a good idea to share my reflections. Again, I'm a highly reflective person, and so at first the idea of writing a journal, writing a diary that the whole world could see, I was a little bit reluctant about that, but then I also realized that maybe that's really what the world needs to see. Is truth from the trench is what I call it. You know, the real things that happen in schools every day. And so tonight, I'm going to spend a lot of my time just reading some excerpts from the self-care chapter as well as the relationships chapter. And so this book is written like a actual diary. So for those of you that have the book, you see that there's a lot of entries that are written. It's dated with month and the time. And so I'm just going to kind of go excerpt to excerpt. So instead of and this book is not written chronologically. So if you buy this book, you can read from chapter 5, you can go to chapter 2, you can skip all around. And so that's the beauty of it. But also the approach that I would like to take is I want to read some excerpts and really just pause after each excerpt and kind of give some commentary. And if there's anybody, on the floor who has a question or a comment, we can kind of just engage in a very intimate way if that's okay for you guys. And if there's anybody that's here who does not have the book but would like to follow along, there's some extra books up here if anybody wants to grab one as well. So, yeah. So the first place that I want to start is I want to start with in chapter 1 on the self-care portion of the book. And that first chapter is called, self-care and matters of the heart. So I'm going to start there. And so I gave a brief introduction into each chapter that I'm going to share some bits and pieces of, and then we'll kind of go from there. And so principle number 1, personal and self-care matters of the heart. In 2018, I found myself entangled in one of those matters of the heart. My mom was fighting for her life after a major surgery, and I found myself navigating between wearing all the many hats of life simultaneously. I was a full-time graduate student, an assistant principal, and a human with a family and other obligations. I did not manage all that was happening to me at the time very well. My daily push was one-liners with no substance. I would say things to myself like, "You were made for this," "You were built for this," or "This is part of the grind." The reality is we were not built to be under so much hurt, heartbreak, and pressure, but we wear it as a badge of honor. I don't know about you, but I believe that our purpose in life as leaders is not always to bear more and more until the load becomes unbearable. All this pressure caused me to have a real health scare of my own that opened my eyes wider than they had ever been opened in my life. Yes, I was a college athlete. Yes, I was active, but that still didn't grant me immunity from the attacks of life when self-care was not a full priority. As you read this chapter, I want you to hear my voice and to hear your inner voice simultaneously. What does your self-care look like at this very moment of your life? What steps can you take to make sure self-care is a priority on your journey as a leader? What I learned in 2018 is when you don't embed self-care in your life will force you to. Life does not always stop you. Life does not always stop for you to catch your breath, to pivot, to grieve, or to simply figure things out. With that being said, if you always acknowledge the fact that you matter and your health matters, by default, you make your situation better. And so I'm very highly reflective, and sometimes my struggle is how transparent to be. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit more just so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. I called it Matters of the Heart because, one, again, my mom was in the hospital basically fighting for her life. So that was the first matter of the heart. And then I was wearing all these hats. I was a leader. I was a school leader. I was in grad school working on the master's to become a principal. All these things were happening. And so one weekend, I literally, and for those who know me well, know that like I'm not a sleeper at all. Like give me 4 or 5 hours and I'm good. But that weekend, I could not get enough sleep. Like it's like at the stoplight, I was just dozing off. When I got home, I was dozing off. Now keeping in mind, my mom was in the hospital. And so I remember that Saturday, I went to her room and literally just sat in a chair and just like knocked out. Like I was so tired the entire weekend. And so when I went back to school on a Monday, I never forget one of my teachers at the school, Miss Battle, she said, Mr. Jenkins, are you okay? She was like, you just kind of seem like a little sluggish. I was like, I'm good. I'm in grad school. My mom going through. I'm probably just dehydrated. She was like, you might want to just go to the doctor to be on the safe side. That's not what I want to hear. So for some reason, I literally just could not get that out my head. So I was like, man, I don't want to go to the doctor because a lot of us, we go to the doctor and of course we're like, well, they might tell me this and then I got to do this. We do silly stuff like they might tell me this or I might have to miss work. Like in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't even make logical sense. Make a long story short, I got to the hospital. They ran some stuff. They were like, you're tired. We're just going to run some EKGs and stuff. EKG came back normal. And so they were like, well, we just want to just check some other stuff. So they checked my heart enzymes. Your heart enzymes should be somewhere around 0.07. And my heart enzyme rate was at a 2. So they're like, okay, that's extremely elevated. Are you in any pain or hurting, whatever? I'm like, nah, I'm just trying to get home because we got testing tomorrow. Like, again, just completely missing the mark. They were like, you know what? Let's just keep you for a few more hours just to monitor to make sure you're good. In 3 more hours, my heart enzyme rate was at a 4. So the doctor said, okay, so something's not right. You're not in any kind of pain. On paper, typically, if your enzyme rate is that high, that means that you're either having a heart attack or you're about to have one or you already had one. So I'm like, nah, I'm good. So I'm laying there. And then they literally, I don't go back home. 2 days later, they transport me to the Heart Institute. So here I am in the Heart Institute. They're running all these tests trying to figure out what's wrong. And my mom's on the 4th floor of the other wing on life support. And so the doctor walks in and he says, well, are you stressed out about anything? And I said, am I? And so start unpacking it all. Like I'm an assistant principal. I'm in grad school. My mom's over there fighting for her life. Yeah, I'm under a lot of stress. And that's when I found out that, a broken heart is a real condition. It's a real medical condition. Your body you can be under so much stress that your body thinks you're having a heart attack. And so, I called this chapter Matters of the Heart because it was a matter of my spiritual heart, but it also was a matter of my physical heart. And so those one-liners of when we talk about, built for it, grind it out, the grind, the stuff that we get from motivational speakers like Eric Thomas and those. My mindset shifted on that because we're not built to carry the things we try to carry. We're not built to walk in that kind of badge of honor. Like, yeah, look what I got going on. And so sometimes we marvel under those kind of pressures. And so I wrote extensively in this first chapter to teachers and leaders and educators about self-care because often we sacrifice ourselves for the work. We sacrifice ourselves for the school, for the mentoring organization, for the fraternity, for the church. We become the living sacrifice. But we get that living sacrifice scripture twisted, because God doesn't call us to sacrifice our life in a way that we can't serve him with our life. And so it's about prioritization. It's about understanding that I'm only as healthy as my body allows me to be. And so that, that experience in 2018 really changed my life in terms of self-care. I learned a really powerful word that's easy to spell and it's hard to say, and it's no. I learned how to say no. I learned how to say not now. I learned how to say I'm unavailable. I learned how to turn my phone off. I learned how to say, you know what, I see that email coming through, but I'm choosing not to respond to it right now. And so one principle that like I said in this book that's really important is just that self-care piece. So any questions in the audience right at this point at all by chance? I see some heads nodding, so somebody can relate to what I'm talking about. So before we go any further in the reading, I'd love to hear some feedback from you guys.
Yes, so I definitely can relate. Just recently, I encountered a very similar experience, and it shifted my mindset because, like you said, when you carry the weight of so many different things, so, I work, I'm a provider, I'm a coach, I have a lot of different things going on. And so I found myself like just not feeling so well, and normally we will like brush that off. But I was told the same thing, like you should go to the doctor, get that checked out. And when I did, I thought they would tell me like, something simple and say, go home. But in my case, I was hospitalized as well and running tests. And so matters of the heart, like I can understand that. And just the self-care piece, what I realized, my own personal reflection was that I was taking care of everybody else and everything else, but I was not taking care of myself. And so this is something very recent for me. And so I'm shifting, learning to say no, learning to take time for myself, and learning to take a step back. Yeah. And really take care of myself, because if I don't take care of myself, I'm no good for work, for my children, for my family, and for the organizations and different things that I represent. So I definitely can relate.
Good. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So that's how the book starts, with self-care, because this entire book is about matters of the heart. And so I like to share the diary entry that I wrote on December 12, 2022. Serving as a rookie principal is demanding, and I use the word rookie a lot throughout the book because as a former coach, rookie just motivated me more than just saying, oh, I'm a first-year principal. I like rookie because it means that I got to work towards something, work towards getting to that level. But serving as a rookie principal is demanding. I say this because theoretically, it is your first journey. You spend a lot of time creating or refining frameworks, systems, and processes that may or may not be in place. Every moment is critical to the next. With that being said, I find it very difficult to be away from the building. I have a great team that can run the show, so it's not a matter of that. But to me, I feel tremendous pressure to connect every moment as a progressive step towards the overall fluidity of our school. Today, I had to step away from the building to attend a family emergency. After spending most of the day in a hospital witnessing so many people in so many critical situations, I started reflecting on what this very experience meant to me and what I could pull from it. I realized we sometimes place an enormous amount of pressure on ourselves when our situation really isn't that bad. The epiphany was that a lot of us in school leadership do not reciprocate the same forgiveness for ourselves that we so graciously offer kids and staff daily. Each day we carry the emotional, mental, and psychological weight of the world on our shoulders and sometimes are not able to see the big picture. Maybe it's just me. Yes, I'm new to this principalship, but I am no stranger to leadership. We have to be able to stop everything sometimes to deal with us, our concerns, our families, our situations. It took an uncomfortable trip to a hospital to show me me. Our call to leadership requires grace, humility, and gratitude, which we sometimes must extend to ourselves. And so Being a school principal, it was hard for me to allow me to be at the center of anything. It was always what's best for the kids. It was always what's best for staff. And, people would say, oh, it's Saturday, I saw your car at the school. Oh, Sunday, your car was at the school. And it takes all of that. It took all of that, And so I had to learn how to give myself grace. I had to learn how to not get off work and go home and clock in back to work on the laptop. Exactly. And I'm still a little bad at that too, but I've gotten a lot better, A lot of people say, just leave your computer at home. I'm not that good yet, but I am good about saying, you know what? I'm not even going to open that laptop. But what I'm saying is we don't give ourselves that grace. We don't give ourselves the grace, the human error piece. We don't allow ourselves to make mistakes. We connect our mistakes to our worth sometimes. And so when you are on this cyclical cycle of making mistakes, you then see mistake in the mirror, and you don't see yourself for what all the other promises are. And so how I spoke over my life every day changed. What I prayed in the hallways every day before staff got there and before kids got there, it changed. Because at first I was praying for everybody under the sun, except me. I had to check myself. I'm like, okay, so that's great that you're praying about trauma and healing and all this stuff. But what about praying for your own strength as a leader? So in those prayers, God had to check me and show me, and realize that, it is no crime to be selfless sometimes, It is a crime to be too selfish sometimes, because if I'm not truly focusing on the things that are really important, then I'm doing somebody injustice. And if that injustice isn't the person that I'm supposed to lead over, the injustice might be the person that I'm looking in the mirror at every single day. And how can you truly be a change agent if your greatest crime that you're committing is against yourself? So I had to learn how to give myself grace, even in the leadership call. And I had to learn how to laugh at my mistakes and not toil over them for 3 or 4 days. Feedback from the floor. Keep the mic hot.
Since you talking about leadership and you was just talking about giving grace to others, so I guess this will kind of answer the question is that what's something you had to unlearn as a leader?
Something that I had to unlearn as a leader.
When it comes to
That absence does not mean negligence. I felt that I had to be everywhere. My first year as a principal, I felt like, okay, and I still have my little mobile office. I don't know if y'all seen those before. You can put your laptop on it. You got wheels. You can put your snacks in there. And that's how I operated. So my secretary would always tell parents, listen, he's never in his office. He's in the hallway. He's in the classrooms. He's on that car everywhere. Because I felt like at some point, at some place over the course of my life, I learned that not being physically present is a sign of negligence. So my struggle has always been, I hate feeling like I'm locked in my office. This is the time of year right now that I'm literally locked to my computer doing finishing stuff. And I feel like I'm neglecting, but it's not. And so the thing I had to unlearn is that leadership, it goes beyond your physical presence, because leadership is spiritual. I don't think that I just work a job as a principal. I believe that I've been called and planted in the place that I'm at. So whether I'm physically present or not, I believe that the impact I'm supposed to make is so monumental that even if I'm not physically there, that it will still manifest into what it's supposed to be. And so I get proof of that sometimes. You have to miss school for a training. And, one of my kids came up and said, man, Mr. Jenkins, I noticed you weren't here yesterday. Where were you? I was looking for you all day long, and it just made me realize that my physical presence is not contingent on my performance. And so I had to teach myself that you can't be everywhere. And let me just call it out because it's what it is. we are guilty of operating from a place of saviorism, where we feel like we gotta save everything and everybody, and and it's just like, and there's nothing wrong with having a heart, right? I mean, like, Patrice, you're a coach, so every young girl, every young boy in your step team, you probably treat them just like your own. And so, been there before. But we also feel like it's my single job to save them from the poverty, the streets, the hurt. And it's not. Because fact of the matter is, the job savior has been filled for over 2,000 years. And they're not, and that position is not hiring. So we don't have to be a savior to people. We can be an inspiration. We can be a resource to people. But sometimes we put ourselves in a position to be a source to people. And that's where we mismanage and become bad stewards of our time and gifts. Because guys, like, you spent all 3 of those out. You spent 3 hours trying to be something to somebody that I could have easily been for 3 seconds. And you could have repurposed those 3 hours into doing what I called you to do. So get out of my way and let me do my job and you do yours, But I had to learn all of this because, you spend time worried about the kids when what's going to happen when they get home. It's human nature if you got a heart for people. But then our rest has got to. We still in the book, y'all, by the way, if you're watching on live. But your rest has to come from knowing that you've been called to be a leader by the greatest leader. And so everything that happens under your leadership is under his leadership, which is sovereign, So I'm going to read one more excerpt from this particular section. One thing that I'm finding out, and this is on page 22, one thing that I'm finding out in this rookie campaign is the significance of consistency. There are so many areas that often go overlooked. I'm learning the criticality of being consistent, particularly in our school's processes and procedures and expectations. It's very easy to just get lax in an area. It's easy to look past that we may deem as minor. It's also easy to avoid conversations that are critical and needed. I am determined that as I navigate through this experience, I will not lower the standard and the integrity of the position of principal, nor will I lower the integrity of the educational framework that exists in my building. It's not only through our repetitive, consistent, and focused actions can we truly garner the results of outcomes that we desire. This work is too taxing and downright difficult to not reap the benefits of our labor. I must be consistent no matter what, even if it seems that I'm sharing the same message on a habitual basis. My methodology may have to change and shift from time to time, but my message will remain the same. Consistency is critical. And so consistency is closely related to discipline. It's just like, for me, I had a mom who we heard things a million times. She said it over and over and over and over, not because we were hard-headed and not listening, but it's almost like she's like, just in case you forgot what I've been saying for 5 years, I'm going to keep saying it. And I found that I'm that way as a leader. And it's also not just connected to discipline, but it's also connected to grace. Because sometimes we lead in a way in which we're like, you know what? I told you not to do this and you didn't do it. We treat people like they're one-hit wonders. Like, I told you one time, so your life should have shifted. But then when we look in the mirror and realize that we still battling stuff that somebody told us 1,000 times and we haven't got the win yet. So consistency taught me how to stop holding people to my standard. So I had this epiphany one day. As a leader, I push hard. My expectation is through the roof, right? And I expect people to be just as passionate, just as intense. And when people don't love kids the way I think they should love kids, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why you? But then in my own faith and prayer, like, I had to be checked. And the analogy that I was given was, we had a track on our campus. And it was just like, you know what? Take your staff to that track and say the goal is to run 1 mile. To complete 1 mile. Like, God had to show me that you got some staff members who will run that mile nonstop, because their endurance is at that level. You got some staff members who may walk the whole mile, but they'll get it done because their endurance level is built different. And you might even have some staff members who might start it and may not finish it. Because you're dealing with different types of people who have a different life stamina because of what life has done to them, like, you have no right to tell people that you need to run when the best they can do is walk. Or you have no right to tell people you need to pick it up when they're crawling for you. So I had to learn how to just be grateful for what people brought to the table. So, we always do this, it's a team, 50-50. No, it's not 50-50. Because if it was 50-50, many of us would have already been destroyed because God would have said you didn't bring your part to the table. But so some days it's got to be 90-10 because your kid might be going through something. So I might have to carry you that day. Some days it might be 40-60 because you might have to carry me, And so I said all that to say that, so I started pushing the ideology of consistency. And so it's kind of like this. I'm reminded of that quote by Martin Luther King. It's like, look, if you got to run, run. If you got to crawl, crawl. If you got to walk, walk. But it was walk before crawl. But whatever you do, he said, don't stop moving. And so that's what I start telling my staff. Like, listen, whatever your best is, just give me your best. And whatever pace that is, we got enough talent in the building where we can compensate each other. Right? Yeah. I'm going to read one more from this particular self-care chapter, and then I'll just kind of pause and just in case there's some feedback or pushback. January 30th, 2023, I wrote, truthfully, today was heavy. It was taxing. It was downright emotionally difficult. Sunday night, I received news of another casualty of another young man in our community. This was the third or fourth gun violence death over the past few months in our town. You never know how incidents like this will impact your school. My school is nestled in the heart of a community, so I will always have to be thoughtful and considerate of how incidents like this will impact my kids and their families. It's hard for me to look at my kids and dream big for them and with them, and in reality know that it can be disrupted suddenly. Gun violence is out of control in my area, and it troubles me to know that society's perception of it is not one of peace and reconciliation. Today was frustrating because there are just moments when I realize I don't have the power to single-handedly fix certain things. I guess that's why we have to rely on the power of prayer. As a rookie principal, I'm learning that there is pain attached to this purpose to lead and shift narratives and trajectories. So my phone rang at 12 o'clock that night, and it was Tarboro Police saying there was a murder on, maybe it was Bradley, which is a block over from my school. So one thing I always did in the afternoons was, because it's a community school, I have several kids who walk home. So I always walked them 2 blocks over because I felt like I was called to be a buffer for them. So if anything ever popped off, I loved what I was called to do so much that I'm okay if I've got to be a sacrifice. But I need to make sure my kids are crossing that street safely every day. But also, if I can keep it real, I also had enough street cred from just the people out there. Half of them were my former students, and they respected me. So I felt like that was always a good thing for my kids. But in 2 years being there and there being 4 murders in that small eastern side of Tarboro, it really troubled me a lot. So I often led through my trauma. And it's not good for you to do anything through your trauma. But I would be cautious about letting the kids go outside because our campus was open and there's nothing for stuff to pop off at 11 o'clock in the morning. So it was a real emotional struggle for me. And then, of course, one of the casualties was the sibling of 2 of my students. And so so you know how that goes. It bleeds into the school. Retaliatory stuff happens. And so I had to be real emotionally focused at work for my kids. So, there was just times where as a leader you suffer in silence just to publicly show up, which is not good practice. It's not good practice. And so, but sometimes if I can be transparent, it doesn't feel like prayer is enough. Like you pray and the anxiety still doesn't go away, or the stress don't go away, or the worryation doesn't go away, and that's okay, to still feel some level of humanism even in the midst of the struggle. And I think Pastor G preached about that last Sunday, just being able to just admit the fact that, like, this is how I feel. Yeah, I believe in God, but this is how I feel. So I kind of had to navigate a lot of that. But the self-care piece was, again, I had to realize I had to free myself from this idea that I had to save, and so protecting is one thing and saving is different. So I just said, you know what, let me just do everything I can do in my building to make sure that when the kids step on campus that they're safe. And we had a very safe school. It was just the community was unpredictable. And that's where my piece kind of had to come from, with the self-care piece. But those heavy days that you just carried all along, because it's just heavy. But that still doesn't refute what we should do. The Bible says we should cast our cares onto him, all our cares. Not the ones you feel like casting, but all of them. And so as a leader, I had to learn how to lean more on the Savior that I proclaimed. Because if he's real to me, then I should follow the rules, right? So if I'm not casting, that means that my faith is suspect and shady. So I had to really do a lot of self-checking and a lot of self-reflecting to make sure that I was who I say I was. Because even if you're not who you say you are, there's people watching your walk and they're watching your witness. And if you get shaky, that gives them permission by default to get shaky. And so, questions, comments, feedback? Anybody got anything?
As far as the safety piece, right?
Whew.
I mean, how did you, when did you said it, but when did you actually start not being that savior? Because that's easy said than done.
So I actually started it years ago. And I'm going to call her name out because she's a good friend of mine. And today is actually her birthday. So one of my good friends from high school, Tanisha Lewis. Tanisha Lewis is not just a great athlete and a great scholar. She's super smart, but she's also an ordained minister. And so over the course of our friendship over years, we always talked about mentoring and stuff. And she said something to me one day years ago that really changed my life. And if they're really your friends, they tell you the truth. She said simply, every kid is not your assignment. Every kid is not your assignment. So, the flesh is like, wait a minute, I'm the principal. What you mean every kid ain't? Every kid is not your assignment. Wait, I'm the coach, and every kid is not your assignment. And so, but here's the piece that makes it easy to swallow. Because if Joe is my assignment, but I want Tim to be my assignment, I'm putting a lot of time and energy into Joe. But Joe's really your assignment. So I'm really pouring on unfertile ground because I'm out of place. But the kid that I'm supposed to be pouring in is suffering because the person called to him is out of place. So when I'm operating from a place of saviorism, two kids lose. They both lose. Versus them both being preserved and having their life trajectory shifted because the mentor that was called to him or the father or parent or whatever, that we were in place. And so what I had to realize is that's where no comes into play. Mr. Jenkins, hey, my son, I had to say, you know what, let me pray about this. And when there was a no, it was a no. Yeah, I know I'm a good person. Yeah, I know I'm great with kids. I know, but that's a hard answer to say, but your kid is not my assignment. And some people won't accept that because then they will immediately attack your witness. Oh, but you're supposed to be a man of God and you're supposed to blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And I said, wait, correction. It's no suppose. I am. And because I am, I'm disciplined and humble enough to know that this is not my place of spotlight. So it's really hard. It's really hard. But every Because if every kid is my assignment, then why does he need y'all? Why does he need the other mentors or the other coaches or, right? They're not all our assignment. And that's just true in everything. I'm a principal. Yes, I love every kid at my school. I love it. But from a divinity standpoint, every kid is not my theological assignment.
So I have a question for that. Like, what do you think it would be about the person who feels like they have to be the savior? You know, like, I feel like there's something with the person when you thinking that, hey, I gotta do this. I gotta make sure this person, I gotta do, you know. So it's something within. Not sure what the something might be, but if you have an idea,
I do.
What would you say it's about the person that's trying to be the savior?
That is a great question. I'm glad you asked it. First of all, let me just say this. I believe in quality versus quantity. I believe that the right people are in this space for this time. So let me just pause and just say thank y'all for coming. That saviorism comes from a place, okay? And that place is sometimes we can have such a deep desire to save other people because it's at that place that we needed someone to save us. So we become the reciprocated answer to our own trauma that we wanted for ourselves. So since my dad wasn't in my life, let me be a great father figure for these kids, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because you don't want them to experience whatever. And I believe that's passion, right? That's just, but sometimes that need to save is because you felt what they haven't felt yet. And you have this unrelenting thing of let me save you from teenage pregnancy. Let me save you from rape. Let me save you from molestation. Let me save you from being talked down by your family. Let me save. And again, your heart's in the right place, but your body's in the wrong place. Because if you boxing out God, then how can he truly save if you're trying to do his job, you know? So, and been there, done that, been guilty of all that, and got plenty of T-shirts to prove it. Felt like I need to save this kid. And the harder you work, the more the kid gravitate away. And again, it's really tricky though, because you may invest in the kid, you may not see the impact early on. That's where you just say, you know what? Some of us just gonna plant seeds. Some of us will water. And then some of us just gonna show up and done nothing and reap all the harvest, right? So we have to just trust that promise to know that, you know what I'm saying to you, it don't look like you taking it in, but I trust the fact that it's not falling on deaf ears. And I know that to be true because I have kids right now who are 30-something years old and telling me, man, every time I remember you told us this, we were on the back hallway and I don't even remember what we were where, who? I don't even remember the stuff, you know. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And a kid inboxed me the other day. He listened to my live the other morning. I didn't even know he was on the live. He inboxed me and said, and reminded me of what I spoke over him when he was in the 10th grade in my class. And now he's, 28, 29? And he was like, man, like, I remember you talking to me about stuff when he lost his father. And he said, I never forgot that. He said, even right now, like, when I'm doing the right thing or the wrong thing, he was like, I still hear your voice. And see, when we say plant seeds, metaphorically, that seed can be your voice. It can be that hug. It can be that smile, right? That smile of affirmation. But also that frown of disappointment or that frown of ridicule can also be remembered too. So that becomes a place, you know, where people just like, I can't disappoint. I can't let people down because every time I failed, I remember my dad had this. And that becomes perpetuated trauma. So we truly can be the light of this world for people. And guess what? If the result don't come when you want it, and like, who are you? You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is stuff I had to, Patrice, I know you can relate to it. I was a coach. Like, I wanted results right then. Like, Bro, how many times I got to tell you this? I done told you one time, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just because you want them to be at a certain place so badly that you want them to miss all the heartache and heartbreak and all that stuff. But truthfully, here's the question I want to pose to you. Would you be where you were if you skipped the heartbreak, heartache, and all that stuff? You wouldn't be half the woman or half the man you are. There's some things you needed to go through. So we have got to give people the grace to fail so that they can be developed as well, you know? So, and I have to, you know, just being a leader, as I wrote about in this book, like I had to really just accept that. I'm not sure where we are on time, but so I'm going to read this last section, and then we can kind of just we can just talk about it until we're out of time. So principle 2 is on relationships matter, and it's called generational impact. One thing that I have found is that relationships are of the utmost importance in any position of leadership. Relationships and the depth of them have the power to truly shift life narratives, life outcomes, life quality, life trajectories. Over the course of my 2-decade career, I have been blessed to have made connections, some seasonal and some divine, that have made a tremendous impact. I remember as a first-year teacher, I struggled initially to make connections and to formulate those bonds. As a 21-year-old first-year teacher, I didn't fully understand the psychology of how to truly connect with people with whom you may or may not share commonalities. I also didn't understand brain science at a level that would help me understand human behavior, which has a huge impact on how relationships are built, established, and maintained. When relationships are built through genuine and organic interactions, the substance of those relationships can withstand challenges, obstacles, and adversity. I spent my entire educational journey and career in the same district until recently. Because of this, I was able to form a lot of great relationships with families within the community. This led to dinner table conversations and living room conversations about Mr. Jenkins. I loved when kids would see me out in public or when they would enter my classroom and ask if I knew their older sibling or family member. What was also great to see was when there had apparently been discussions about do's and don'ts prior to their arrival. As I stuck around for over 2 decades, I finally saw what generational impact truly looked like. Kids from whom I mentored and provided interventions for now had children in my school. When I think about the honor and privilege of having served families generationally and the ability to make similar impacts, I attribute this to leadership. You may categorize this as servant leadership or just sheer leadership. Nevertheless, it highlights the blessing of being able to make impacts and some across generations. As you read this chapter, think about the relationships that you have been able to formulate over the years. Also think about the relationships that are currently being formulated. What was the key in the formation of this relationship? What will it take to make it sustainable? And how has the relationship impacted you as a leader? And so as we kind of start to somewhat wind down, you know, that relationship piece is critical. It wasn't just me being able to say, oh, I coached your dad or I taught your mom. That was helpful. Because moms would tell their kids, like, listen, I already know Mr. Jenkins. I already know he don't play, so it ain't no need for you to come home whining about this or that. So that was helpful. But it was also helpful generationally as I saw kids who literally were microcosms of their parents. So it's like, I was like, you know what? I know your dad. I know that family history. I know why you act the way you act. It allowed me to not just say, so teachers put him in the front row. It allowed me to operate from a place of compassion and more empathy because I knew already what the kid was battling before the battle he even started. And so it gives you a chance to speak over a kid in a way that maybe they don't understand, but it allows you to speak a language that maybe they couldn't comprehend, but it allows you to speak things spiritually in place that would impact their lives, which would allow them, which would equip them to be that cycle breaker. But at the same time, it also allowed me to have real conversations with parents like, listen, I taught you in 6th grade. The reason you didn't graduate because you got caught up in the wrong circle. So what I need you to do as a dad in your kid's life, I need you to break that cycle. I need to show up. I need you to be impactful, have a voice, have a level of integrity. And when I call you, I need you to show up. So, I mean, but again, when when you've been that to the parent, and now you get to be that to the kid, they receive it, even if it's tough love, and so I remember having some tough conversations with parents. I got a kid in mind now. He was the smartest young man in 7th grade. I had taught his father, but his dad didn't show up to nothing. So I said, you know what? Your kid's the smartest kid in school. I don't see you at nothing. But if he commits a crime, you're going to be forced to show up at stuff. Take your pick. Show up at jail or show up at awards night. Show up at probation hearing or show up at the athletic banquet. He was like, you know what? Yes, sir, I got you. So relationships matter. And I think what I want to say as I'm closing out is that sometimes we let fear take over truth. Well, I don't want to say this to her because every time you say something to her, they go, okay, go off. Crash out, do whatever you got to do, and I'm still going to be sitting here. So let me know 5 minutes, how much time you need. Like, do whatever you got to do. But we still going to come right back to the place you've made your life decisions. We still going to come right back and talk about your child that deserves a right to have a stable and consistent life. So whatever. Okay. Because we ain't never scared, right? I'm just saying, if you a leader, you can't be scared. Like, I don't know what the parents going to say because I got to sit them out this week. Okay, nothing. There ain't nothing to say. They sitting out in a discussion. If you don't like it, find another organization or school, and we keep it moving. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to sabotage the well-being for everybody else to cater, because privilege is real. Privilege comes in all colors, shapes, sizes, genders, and we're not going to operate from a place of privilege. We're going to call out truth, and then we're going to be better by it. So I just want to close and just say that, this book is not a big book, but it's crazy because it is powerful. I ain't said it yet, but it's a lot of power in this book. I ain't know it till I got up here. I was like, okay, let me find out. Find out the book all right. So, but no, yeah, it is. It's a pretty good little book. Like I think I'm gonna drive home a little bit different, my chest out, But no, it's a really good book, and I wrote it. It's a diary, so I wrote it from my heart, And so I hope that if anybody's listening, if you haven't decided if you kind of want it, it's still on Amazon. You can check it out. It's only $20. I carry them around with me all the time in my car, so please get a copy. Whether you're leading Sunday schools, whether you're leading a fitness group, this book is for leaders of any sort or any kind. So I just want to thank the Community Book Club for allowing me to make the cut to be here tonight. I'm sure it was a lot of great authors that y'all had to say no to, but so I'm humble. And now I know my book kind of good. Like I feel pretty good. So I really thank you. Thank you, Fonte, for doing this out of the kindness of your own heart. And I'm just really thankful. So I appreciate it. I'm gonna go back and watch this. So if there's anybody watching this live, if you got questions, I'd love to hear them, or inbox me on Facebook. I'd love to just entertain the questions. I think there's a question in the back.
You have a question? Okay. Welcome to the book club. Glad to have you.
Book club, yes, sir.
I really didn't know. I came in here for some
I think
wings
it's Mike. Look.
and fries. If I might say, first of all, I sat here listening to you with much disappointment. The disappointment is not what you were saying, but to a few people that were here to hear it. So I didn't know what the venue would be, but you said quite a few things that so many people need to hear. I'm fairly new in town. I'm retired from New York, and much of what you covered has been my life experience. My background in law enforcement, once a police commissioner, correction official, chaplain of New York State Police for 23 years, and
Wow.
and then a pastor for 36 years.
Wow.
But I'm listening, and I hear what we commonly refer to as a voice crying out in the wilderness. And since I've been down here, I've had many discussions with people, much to my disappointment, that somehow many folk had not gotten the news, that we need to keep this struggle. And it takes, in your case, one kid at a time or one seed. So I want to commend you. From New York, we don't know much about agriculture, but I equate that with planting seeds. Spiritually, you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
And I learned when I got down here that you reap what you sow. In other words, if you plant apple seeds, you're not going to be plucking up watermelon. You reap what you sow.
Yeah.
And then you end up reaping more than you sow.
Yeah.
I did some things when I was young, and I come not with my titles, but my testimony. If it had not been for the Lord,
Yes, sir.
who's on my side,
Amen.
I end up reaping more than I sow. I only did one infraction or one this or one. When I was very young, when I saw a young lady, I was very young, and I liked her. I would hit her, and I would run. I say hit her. I'm up to about 6, 7 years old. You just hit them and you run. I came down south and spent the summer with some people on Seaboard. I saw a country little girl that I liked, and I really hit her. And she chased me and chased me. Now, I only gave one hit. By the time she caught me, I ended up reaping so much more than I sold. and then finally, what you were saying, and I want 2 copies of your book, if I might.
Okay.
You also not only do you reap what you sow or more than you sow, but more often than not, you end up reaping later than you sow. So your work that you do is speaking for you. The lives that you're touching, you might not see it right now, but one child at a time, one inspiration at a time.
Yes, sir.
And after a while, by and by. God bless you, my brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man.
For that. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Do we have any more comments, questions?
That's these questions that was proposed to us before the place. And you kind of hit on some of them. So I'm gonna just put them and then you kind of talk about it.
Okay.
So one of them was, what spiritual or leadership books have shaped the way you teach, lead, and serve? And then the other one was, what is some practical ways in which you make sure students and staff feel seen and heard? I'm gonna let you do them, and then I got that 2 more, and then I was like,
So, what books? So, the first book is the Bible, and I know that's cliche, but I have quotes that I like, and I can run off a whole lot of quotes, but quotes are man-made, and a quote is what another man needed in that moment. Now, don't get me wrong, I got a lot of quotes, but so what I'm saying is I need to stand on a promise. Like, I need to make sure that, that there's dividend on what I'm sowing, right? And so my inspiration comes from just scripture, just why am I so passionate? Yeah, I think I was built this way, but I'm not going to say it was because my mom and dad just had good DNA. But Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, do it for the Lord first.
Right.
And then do it with all your heart. That's
it.
a promise,
That's a
right?
promise.
Or that's actually a decree. So if I'm going to stand here, I got to do it with all my heart. So when I'm human, when I start getting lazy and just start feeling myself kind of going through the motions, let me go back to my banner scripture. Like Colossians 3:23, hey, pep it up. Let's go. So I stand on this promise. But if I can figure out, there's a book that I read by T.D. Jakes. It's called Disruptive Thinking. And that book is powerful because it helps you to disrupt the way we think.
right.
But I also love Crushing by T.D. Jakes. I love T.D. Jakes. Despite what the world might say, I love T.D. Jakes.
Right.
And Crushing is a book that helps you, how do you rebound when your life has been crushed? He opens a book about, we know his daughter, right? Sarah.
Sarah.
Well, she was 13 and walked in the house and said she was pregnant.
Right.
Right? And he talked about how that crushed him. And I'm going to be honest, I went through some crushing seasons of my life. It might not look like it. It might not be no grape stains on my jacket. But trust me, I went through some crushing seasons. But in order to become fine wine, the grapes have got to be crushed. And so the book Crushing was one of my favorite books that really gave me the inspiration. What was the second question about?
What is some practical ways in which you make sure students and staff feel seen and heard?
So I'm a big 5 love languages guy. So I figure out what people's love language is. And then sometimes you can just ask. So something as simple as when I'm checking all the buses in every morning and the kids are walking, some kids just want to wave. Some kids I speak to, some kids hug me. And so I try to love people in alignment with their language. Because what we don't know is
That's good.
Because of people's trauma, some people don't want to be touched.
That's right.
Because of people's trauma, like some people don't want to be talked down to.
Right.
Like you just got to know people. And so what I try to do is I'm a former history teacher, so I see people like history books. So I try to find out as much history about people as I can. So I ask a lot of questions. I'm not being nosy. I just ask a lot of questions about people, and then I put the story together, and then I know how to share the love of God with people. I know how to love on people, metaphorically speaking, not necessarily physically, but what to send in that text, when you know that person's off or whatever. Like, so I just try to do that for all my kids and all my staff, and everybody receives it differently.
Yes.
Some people, because of the trauma, don't know how to receive love.
That's right.
Been there, done that, got 3 T-shirts to prove it. Where some people have to be taught how to allow themselves to be loved.
That's true.
So that's kind of how I try to make sure that I see people and affirm people in a way that's safe for their affirmation.
What inspired you to be an educator, and how did your faith shape that decision?
So I've always known since I was I knew at 7 that I had a real passion for kids. I knew that already.
At 7? That's good.
And at 12 or 13, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And how my faith shaped that is because I've always been a teacher. So when most kids were out playing, my mom was one of these, I think it was her trauma too. Like we couldn't go outside when it was real hot because she was like, y'all gonna have a heat stroke. I mean, she was the one of them moms. So it's just like, we were like, Lord, we gotta stay in the house till 4:30 till the sun goes down. So because of that, I was in 3rd grade, 4th grade, I was just used to write. I was writing. I was a social studies kid. I used to write papers about the Holocaust and all this stuff.
Wow.
And so I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And how that spiritually helped me was because I went to college to be a teacher, but I didn't go through the teacher prep program. So I was never trained to be a teacher. So I decided not to go to law school, and I was going to go to teach. So I went through what they call lateral entry. So even though I had a history degree and I was teaching history, I never went through a teacher training. But I was teacher of the year my first year as a teacher. So it's like I've always been a gifted teacher, right? But so what I didn't know is until I was about 27, 28 is that one of the 6 pillars in the Bible, the 6 pillars of the church, one is teaching. So I didn't know that teaching was also a spiritual gift.
It is.
But then I found out that you must have it because I could teach a bird. Teaching comes so easy, and so that influenced me because I realized that I was a history teacher. Who loves history, right? But man, kids used to love coming to my class because I had a way of teaching it that was relevant to them.
Yes.
So so my faith rooted me because I knew I was in the right place.
Right.
So any kid that came through my door, I knew that they were supposed to be there. And that's another book. So I could write a whole book about that, about kids who were just meant to be in my class. Not because of how I impacted them, but how they impacted me. So.
Wow, that's what's up. One more question, and that is, what is the one big takeaway you hope people receive from reading your book?
The one big takeaway that I hope people receive from reading my book is, first of all, the first thing I want you to see is the kid who grew up in Section 8 project, food stamps, needed all the stuff, lights got turned off, did homework under a candle. That's the first thing I want you to see, that God can use anybody. That's the first thing. The second thing is that even writing a book, I never thought that this would happen. It was always an ambition, but I never thought it would happen. So whatever mountain you're facing, the mountain's only as big as your steps. So you take baby steps, the mountain is going to be pretty enormous. You take big steps like you own that mountain, it's conquerable. But the thing I want people to understand about this book is just that great things can come out of your heart, even if that's the place that you've experienced the most hurt. And so I just wrote a whole book about my heart for kids. And ironically, that's also the co-residence of a lot of trauma that I have healed from and that I'm healing from. So, yeah.
Awesome. This has been awesome. Give him a hand clap. Thank you
y'all.
so much.
Appreciate you. Thanks for inviting me.
So y'all definitely want to do self-care in whatever area of your profession is. I just had a massage today. because I'm on my feet all the time. I do hair all the time, and so my hands, my feet, my back, my neck, all that.
That's a song. I'm just saying.
But all of that. And I do that once a month. So that is very important that we do take care of ourselves. And also, you talked about generational things. So I want us to also, even though he was speaking on with school and how he had taught, some of the parents and things of that sort, I want us to also just, think about the generations that we have in our families and how some of the good things that we have, but also those things that are not so good that we want to change. And so that's what you were doing. Like you were reminded that the young man, hey, you need to show up for your son, because if not, this one thing can happen, or would you want this thing to happen? So let's just keep that in mind. This has been great. Thank you again, Fonte, for all that you do.
Yes,
Shout out to
sir.
Mo
Fonte.
and Dee's for allowing us to host it.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, sir, for
Yes, sir.
engaging with us tonight. I really
Yes, sir.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so we do this every second Thursday of the month, and where we have local authors to come in to do some inserts, and we have open discussions. So if you know of anyone that is local, have a book, and would love to participate, we would love to have them here. And so it has been a great night, and we want to say thank y'all all for tuning in to online. If you have any questions, as Leshaun said, you can inbox him, ask the question, or put it on the chat in the comment. He's going to make sure that he runs this back and look at it so he can see how great he dropped all them gems. I'm going to go back because I need to get my bag and put all them gems in it. So thank y'all so much, and we'll see y'all in June.
Wow.